So I see bet, but he just calls, and then he leads to the turn. And turn is very easy. He still has all the 8-7s and 10-8s, and so very easy call. River is an ace, and he jams. Listen, my friend, I want you to pay very close attention now. You might have had a very rough scoop and a KO series. You face a lot of bad beats. You're not getting paid out from your value hands. Your bluffs are not working. Whatever you try, it simply doesn't work. Your deep runs break left and right. And when you have a very promising stack, you get into final 2 tables, and then you go from chip lead to short stack, and then you don't even make the final table. First of all, this can easily happen during a scoop or a KO series. It's just a couple of 100 tournaments, maybe just 10, 20, 30 tournaments, depending on your volume. So variance is always there, and if you're not willing to accept it, poker is not the right thing. But since you watch my videos, I'm pretty sure you want to get better in poker. You understand that variance is a big key factor in poker, and whatever you try, even if you make the best plays in the world, you can still lose 30, 40, 100 tournaments, and you're just on a downswing. But it's very important that you understand that what we're trying to do here and what I'm trying to teach you is that you focus on the things that are in your control. Don't dwell on all the things that have happened. Don't be entitled to win more. Don't be entitled to win that coin flip. It's still just a 50-50. Statistic doesn't have a memory. It doesn't remember all the previous 19 suckouts. You can still face a 20th, a 21, and 22nd suckout in a row. It doesn't matter. And what I'm trying to teach you here in this video is just some very core principles when it comes to playing poker, and a lot of things that in our GTO society in poker, everyone is trying to play so perfect. And what I'm actually doing over and over is I just keep things fucking simple. And we're going to talk about several topics. I'm trying to illustrate that based on real hand examples, showing you how I approach it when it comes to those situations, what's going on in my mind. So here we have a hand, ace queen suited. This was final 2 tables of the 1K scoop that I played on Monday, no, it was a Tuesday, that I won, that I took down. And here was one of the key hands. No, it was not a key hand, but I think it's a hand that it actually illustrates very well how I saved a decent stack here for myself. So we have ace queen suited, and the small blind, he already squeezed fold earlier. Everyone would say, well, we have already 12 big blinds in the middle, just go ahead and shove. But I was actually not sure. He already squeezed folded earlier against my open raise and a cold call, so he knows that he has a very aggressive image. Usually people are not up to, well, I just squeezed fold, now I'm going to play even more aggressively. And guys, we are in position, we have a good hand, why not just playing it safe and calling? If we lose this one, we're down to 70 big blinds. And we're in a much worse position as we're at now. Like, we covered all the players to our left, the big stack to our right. There's no problem. We can just, it's about to get to the final table bubble. Our position is what I would call a dream position. And why do I want to risk that by making a stupid shove here? I mean, I think it's profitable in the long run, but I think just calling and preserving my future game here is much better. Like, if someone jams here, it's probably profitable. I wouldn't blame him, but then don't blame yourself when you never win tournaments, because there might be situations that they look profitable at first, but maybe you can generate more profit by playing a little more safe. There's a tough line between making aggressive plays. I mean, you see me also doing extremely aggressive plays, but then I want to be sure my reads has to be on point. I have a lot of history with all these players, and if I think this is very profitable, play is much more profitable with all things considered, then I'm going to make an aggressive play. But here, I think it makes more sense to play it safe. Like, I was not really sure if I'm making more profit by shoving, but it's definitely very profitable to just call and play in position with a very strong holding, right? And also our hand is very deceptive. So I just decided to call. We still, of course, assume that he can have a few bluffs. He bets very, very small, ace queen, 2 overcards. I think we have to call once here. He can have some ace 8s, ace 7s that are bluffing. So I decided just to call. Not to raise. I mean, folding wouldn't be the worst, but yeah. And on the turn, I decide for a very small bet. I think I can see a lot of folds from ace king with a certain frequency, and that would be huge for my hand. And we might also make him fold some hands like king jack that might bluff the river, or some hands like king 9 suited, like some random hands that we fold out, and we invest very little. However, he decides to call. It goes check on the river, and by just calling, I saved myself 16 additional big blinds. And instead of losing 35 big blinds, I actually only lost 20 big blinds. Well, if ace queen suited in a 3-bet pot is pretty okay. And if we break it down, I mean, it's very results orientated, but it's just one of these spots, and I like to keep it very practical when I don't want to risk my tournament life, or I don't want to risk my incredible future value on this tournament. I rather take the safe route and let people bluff into me. My calling range is a lot stronger, and yeah, we would have lost here 16 more big blinds. Everyone would have said, well, it was standard, 20, 30 big blinds, like hijack against small blind, late position battle, just jam it. But yeah, I think taking an alternative line here is much, much better. And when you're in those situations, when you have a deep run, really think it through. What is your position? Where comes the value from? Do you have an opponent like to your left, to your right? Are they 3-bet folding a lot? Can you 4-bet jam a lot on them? Like any kind of reads that you have on your opponents, how you can extract value from them is important. Or simply just open raising. Are they not defending their big blind? I know opponents that with a certain stack size, 30, 40 big blinds, they just 3-bet fold too much. And every single time they open raise, I open raise, they 3-bet me. I just 4-bet jam, and I make so much profit. And it's really important that you're aware of where do you make your money on this table. Are there calling stations? You just need to wait for good hands. There were also a couple of players where I know they're calling stations, and all I need to do is just wait for a good hand, value bet very thin, defend my big blind accordingly, try to hit a pair, go for thin value, and that's how I exploit my opponents. I also know opponents that overfold a lot, and I can just bluff incredibly wide. So be aware of your future EV, and the better it is, really sink down and think about before you go all in. Maybe calling and playing it safe is the better option. The next hand is something we also have to face, being involved in very dicey spots, 3-bet pots, bluff catchers, but let's look into it. So we have a situation here. We open raise from the hijack, cut off 3-bets, and it's a spot where a lot of people 3-bet hands like ace 9 suited, ace 8 suited, ace 5 suited, queen 10, jack 10 suited. So with our ace 10, I think it's good enough to just call the 3-bet. I would never fold here. I think our equity against villain's bluffing range is still too good. Some ace jacks are just calling pre. Of course, we run into ace king, ace queen quite frequently. But I think given the odds, ace 10 is still a hand that I prefer calling here. I would rather lean more towards folding if I approach it more from a theoretical standpoint though. But I think that the population still over bluff 3-bets with lower suited aces and lower suited connectors. So too many 9-8 suited, 10-8 suited instead of, let's say, maybe a king jack off or an ace jack off. I think these hands are being flat called way more frequently. Against a strong opponent, I would fold this hand. simply because, again, ace king, ace queen is still in their range, and a strong opponent is 3-betting hands that, we were not performing so well with ace 10 off. So the hands villain is supposed to be 3-betting. I mean, if you have the Tournament Masterclass, you can see the range viewer for around 30 big blinds. You see what kind of hands should be 3-bet there, and it should be hands like king 9 suited, queen 9 suited, maybe king 8 suited, some ace jack offs, of course, and then also all value hands. And then the suited aces are actually more being flat than 3-bet, but I think the way population plays, they're 3-betting way too many ace 4 suited, ace 5 suited, which should never be 3-betted here. They should rather be called. Because they have way too much equity here. And I think that these hands are being 3-bet way more often. That's why I deviate a little bit from theory here and call a hand like ace 10 off way more frequently than folding. But again, someone that understands the kind of hands it's supposed to be 3-bet with here, I'm definitely folding ace 10 off. So it's more like an exploit. So I went for the call, and on the flop, we face a bet. I think he will. I don't mind check jamming here. Again, we have a flush draw, but the problem I have here is that if I always jam my hearts on a hard run out, I'm going to be extremely capped, and it's very easy to play against me. So sometimes I swallow the pill. I just call, keep his range wide. He might be c-betting with his queen jack, jack tens, and later on he might be bluffing into me. I might also not be perceived having so many nut flushes. People go crazy when they think you're capped. So I just went for the call, and then I will call pretty much always a turn jam, because he can still have something like queen jack offsuited with a queen in hearts or jack in hearts, but I think he will slow down a lot on the turn. And it goes check check. I mean, if he has ace king, I think he will more often check back if he doesn't have a heart, because we have so many flushes in our range. So yeah, it depends. Maybe, let's say, yeah, I don't think we can fold a nut flush draw on the turn, where he could be jamming some weaker flush draws here, and he goes crazy with. So anyway, it goes check check on the turn. The river is a 3, and now it gets interesting. And why am I showing you this hand? Of course, it's not. I'm always advocating rather fold, make a hero fold than make. But don't shy away from making good bluff catcher calls when your opponent can be just full of shit, and his range is incredibly wide. I mean, decent bluff catchers. Just try to put yourself in the situation. What kind of hands would be willing playing this way? Which kind of value hands? Ace king with the ace of spades, ace of hearts, pocket aces with the ace of hearts, all these sorts of hands, nut flushes, so maybe an ace 9, c-bets the flop, checks the turn, and we block all of those. Also from his perspective, I don't think he's going to bluff with a lot of ace and hearts. I think they're jamming the turn a lot anyway, so it's really good to block those hands, because the most likely value hand contains an ace and hearts. So he could be jamming something like queen jack, or like especially with one heart, or I mean it's really tough. But the problem is he still has all this crap that he was 3-betting pre-flop, and he comes to the river with, and our ranges look so weak, right? And I don't think he's jamming king queen for value here, like king queen without a heart. I don't think he's jamming king jack without a heart for value. So his value range is very, very narrow. And we block pocket tens. So when you block so many value hands, then I give you the green light to make a bluff catcher. But other than that, guys, I say it over and over again. I'm also going to show you a hand where I leveled myself like a fucking idiot, and I made a hero call that was just fucking stupid. So here, just make the fold, make the call. We have a good bluff catcher. Don't shy away to make the hero call. Also for your tournament life, when you have a very strong bluff catcher, but think it through. Take the minute or 2 minutes. What kind of line would villain play? Would play this way when he plays bet check bet, or bet, or he checks back the flop, bets the turn, shove the river. Which kind of value hand would he do it with? And are you blocking those? Or are you blocking his bluffs? Then you shouldn't be doing it, of course. So I made the call, and he had a random queen jack. It's really hard to ascertain a bluffing range, but the problem is here, his 3-bet range doesn't necessarily need to be strong. He still has all these hands in his range. His value range is very narrow, and yeah, I think it's a good call. And but usually I'm very careful. The next hand here, I'm going to show you how fucking retarded I was. I think here checking back is fine. We have a lot of equity. I mean, if we bet and he jams on us, we probably have to call, because he can have queen 10. We have to 7-8, 10-8. So many open-ended straight draws, all offsuited combos. If he has something like Jack 8, Jack 7, check jamming for value, we have 2 overs in the gutter. We perform quite okay against his all his draws. So if he check jams, I'm probably gonna stack off here. So I see bet, but he just calls, and then he leads to the turn. And turn is very easy. He still has all the 8-7s and 10-8s, and so very easy call. River is an ace, and he jams. And this is one of the spots where this is not a good bluff catcher, because again, we have ourselves all the Jack X. We have much better hands to call with. We have queens, we have kings, we have aces. We have even if I have ace queen, even if I have ace 4, I might still call on the turn, because he still has all the draws. Do I have ace 4? It's actually not. We're not blocking any of his bluffs. Might be a call in theory. I'm not 100% sure. However, this is probably a spot where most people also shy away. We block king 10s. We block queen 10s. I mean, we don't block 10-8 and 7. That's what I thought. He has all the 8-7s and 7-5s and 10-8s, but it's a scoop, and he was an unknown to me, especially if you play against unknowns. I mean, against regulars, probably not so bad. It's super easy to overbluff this spot, but here we're not blocking any of his value hands. It's just a spot. It's just a guessing game, right? We can't solve this spot so accurately as we did in the previous spot. Well, it was pretty obvious how many hands we block, because he can have all the 6-5, 6-4s. He can have a shit ton amount of 6x here, and yeah, he's jamming. Also, timing tells is very important. Pay attention to it. The guy also jammed it like within 5 seconds. Like, if you have 7-5, if you have 8-7, you really want to think it through. And I leveled myself into calling here, and I think in these kind of spots, our opponents, they always have it. Especially then when they jam on an ace, they're greedy, they want to get into, and it makes a lot of sense. A good play. Like, I would also play it like this and jam an ace here. Jam a 6. If he has something like ace 5 in clubs, ace 8 in clubs, he could also jam for value, because we have so many kings, queens, king, jack, jack 10s. An ace should also be a value jam on the river, by the way. I'm not sure if he does it, but yeah. Really bad call. Don't level yourself into these calls, and yeah, especially not with king high. You have much better hands to call. In general, if you have a lot of pairs, you don't need to make it with king. You don't need to be the hero. I tried to be a fucking hero. I was just retarded. Don't do it. And I'm not trying to be results oriented. I also try to show you things that don't work and things that work in the long run. Not always, but they make profit in the long run, or they generate profit in the long run. And I just punted 16 big blinds away. And today is the last day of the scoop. You might have even a big day too. Think it through. Based on your experience, are people really taking this line as a bluff so often? And if you're not really sure, make the fold. Tournament poker is different than cash game poker. You will have future EV. Even though if it's slightly plus EV, you will get better spots in the future. In cash game, we want to take mostly all profitable spots, because we're going to get another profitable spot in the future anyway. But in tournaments, not the case. When you're out of the tournament, it's GG, it's gone. In fact, all your future spots will be less profitable, because the shorter you are, the lower your ROI, right? It's pretty self-explaining. So keep that in mind when you're about to make a big decision. Recall, evaluate UEV on this very table, in this very tournament. And the tougher the field, the more we have to put ourselves in marginal situations. But if you play soft fields, big tournaments, usually the fields are very soft and you want to stay away from making so stupid plays. Ace Jack suited here. Another topic I want to address here, value bet thin for value. All right. And we open race here, Ace Jack suited. It was one of the party poker tournaments. I think it was a PKO villain. This point in time, unknown to me, 3 bets, big blind versus hijack. I would perceive these 3 bets as very strong. However, of course, we have an easy call with Ace Jack suited. Be very careful post flop. On the flop, with 2 overcards and a backdoor flush draw, if I have Ace Jack in hearts, I would just fold. But I think the additional backdoor flush draw gives us a little bit more value on EV for the call. Turn, nothing else to say. Very easy call here. We don't want to be shoving. I think we're going to be shoving too often in overpairs that are never folding, and the river is an ace. And what I see very often, the people, I'm having my ace, I want to play it safe, I check back. No, don't do that. Let's think it through. Again, our opponent, we block ace king, ace king, and ace queen in spades, which could be double barreling, right? So that's great that we have the ace in spades. If he's sometimes occasionally bluffing, he could be bluffing re-raising preflop with ace 2 suited, ace 3, ace 6, ace 7, these turn gutters. I mean, it's very unlikely, but it's possible. And he can also easily level himself calling with 10s, jacks, queens, kings, because we could potentially turn 6s and 7s into a bluff. So I went for the value jam and he called with queens. I'm not a big fan of his blocking some of my king queen floats with king queen in space. I think he shouldn't be blocking any of the backdoor flush draws, but you can see that people are gonna make calls that are not good. And honestly, I would probably not bluff jamming 6s and 7s as often as I'm supposed to be in theory, because I expect too many calls from kings, queens, jacks, 10s. I think people feel too much committed. They think we have something like 10 jack 10, 10 9, a backdoor flush. I mean, even if he blocks the backdoor flush, you see he calls it. Like, so I mean, he also blocks ace queen in spades, right? But it's just a spot where it's probably in theory very, very marginal bluff catcher. And even if I know that I should be calling this combo, I would still not make it because I know I get much better hands in the future. And I would definitely 3-bet some hands like ace deuce, ace 3 suited, and I would bluff catch them on the river. Like suited aces, bluff 3-betting preflop from the big blind are definitely very viable. We could also be 3-betting something like ace 4 suited, you know, to clear out some equity, some floats, just bet very small. So it's definitely possible to have some ace x, and the first hands I would be calling with would not contain blocking a hand like king queen in spades or queen jack in spades. I mean, he has really good bluff catching hands with like queen and clubs, queen and diamond, if he decides to bluff catch. But again, even if it would be bluff catch in theory, I would still not make it because I think I'll find much better spots in the future instead of risking my tournament life here. It's really hard when you have 12, 14 tables, even if it's just 6 tables or 2 tables. If 2 tables are already a lot for you, it means you're in a very stressful situations and you're under a lot of pressure, and it's really difficult to recall these simple things in poker. That it's about these small simple things to just maintain your EV in this tournament. So if you're one of these candidates that constantly bluff catches and wants to be hero, for today, set yourself the goal that you really think it through. Even if it looks like the easiest bluff catcher, think it through. I think this is one of the best advice I can give you here today for now, to just think it through. I see people snap calling, snap acting. That's just dumb. You have a bit of time, think it through, and very often you will realize, wait a minute, what am I about to do? And then you might do a different call. And if you have the feeling that you're behind and somehow it's not working out and then you still want to make a call, don't find fantasy reasons to make a bullshit call to to find excuses, to be a hero. Go with your gut. You know, based on your experience, what the right play is, and based on your experience and really thinking it through and finding rational reasons for a certain play, then you make the right decision. Don't just punt your tournament life away. So that put us in a very nice position. I think at the end I finished the tournament also top 5 for 2025 K score. And the most important takeaway from here: go thin for value. Value jam your ace 10 in spades. Value jam your ace jack in spades. You block a lot of ace-6. It's very likely that your opponent will have jacks, kings, queens, aces, kings, and they're gonna hero call it quite often. By the way, if he has aces, he should be checking it. We shove our full houses anyway. We might be bluffing with some 6s and 7s. So in case you have the aces, don't be too greedy. Also, mix in some traps after you bet the flop, bet the turn, and let your opponent bluff. That's it already for today. It was more about some... I don't like to give you motivation, because actually this is something that you should develop from within. You're not supposed to have someone that motivates you. External motivation is sometimes good, but majority of the time it should come within. You should exactly know why you're doing this. Why do you suffer all this pain in playing poker? What are your goals? What are your long-term goals? But I think these are 3 very fundamental things that you should incorporate in your game. First of all, fold in situations when you can't figure out or you're not sure whether you have a good bluff catcher or not, and your tournament life is at risk. But when you have strong bluff catchers and your opponent's range is wide, he can have potentially a lot of bluffs. Make the hero call. Don't shy away. Even though if it's deep in a tournament, it should make no difference. Don't be money scared in those situations. And last but not least, value bet thin. Doesn't matter if it's final 2 tables. This was final 2 tables, by the way. People like to be heroes. Make a thin value bet. And especially when they check. Usually people, the deeper the tournament goes, and it's a very good tip here, by the way, they become more and more greedy. They want to get the safe call. They're not tricky and fancy enough to mix in checks in a lot of spots. So very often when they check to you, you can be very safe that you have the best hand. Go for a thin value bet, own them, crush them, and then I'm very certain that you are going to have a lot of deep runs today, a lot of day 2s for Monday, and hopefully day 3 for Tuesday in the Scoop main. And I see you there, hopefully on the final table. I will give my best as well. Have a good Sunday, stay strong, and let's crush.